They were trained to protect. 12 weeks at the academy. Thousands of hours on patrol. Muscle memory for every scenario in the book. But who protects them when the system fails? These officers did everything right. The protocols, the training, the instincts honed over years of service, and the system still killed them. This isn't a list of deaths. This isn't a news report. This is a forensic autopsy of systemic betrayal, and it starts with a traffic stop that should have been routine. Case 1. DARIAN Jarrott. February 4th, 2021. 11:23 a.m. Interstate 10, mile marker 102. Deming, New Mexico. Officer DARIAN Jarrott. Jarrott pulled over a white Chevrolet pickup. Routine traffic stop. He'd done hundreds of these in his 4 years on the force. 38 years old, father of 3. He radioed dispatch, stepped out of his cruiser, and approached the driver's side window. Professional. Calm. Textbook. But here's what the system missed. The man behind that wheel, Omar Felix Cueva, had an active federal warrant. For firearms trafficking, the DEA knew. The task force knew. Jarrott didn't. That 15-second information gap cost him his life. Cueva stepped out holding an AR-15 rifle concealed at his side. Before Jarrott could reach for his weapon, Cueva raised the rifle and fired. 5 rounds. 5.56 millimeter. Muzzle velocity, 3,150 feet per second. In those 8 seconds between the first shot and the last, Jarrott knew. He knew he was dying on a highway he'd driven 1,000 times. He knew his kids would grow up without him. Omar Cueva was killed 4 hours later in a shootout with police near Las Cruces. But the intel gap that killed Jarrott, still unfixed. Case 2. Christopher Brewster. December 7th, 2019. 5:41 p.m. Magnolia Park neighborhood, Houston, Texas. Sergeant Christopher Brewster. Brewster responded to a domestic violence call. A woman's voice on the line, terrified, whispering. Her boyfriend had a gun. She needed help. Brewster had 9 years on the force. He'd handled hundreds of these calls. He knew the statistics. Domestic violence calls are the most dangerous in policing. He parked 2 houses down. Standard protocol. Assess before approach. He never made it past the driveway. The suspect emerged from the shadows with a .22 caliber pistol. 3 shots in rapid succession. The first 2 rounds hit Brewster's vest. The Kevlar held. The third found his neck. Severed his carotid artery. Blood loss. Approximately 0.4 liters per minute. Time to unconsciousness at that rate. 45 seconds. Brewster collapsed on the concrete. His last act was keying his radio. I'm hit. 778 Herkimer. He was 32 years old. His wedding was planned for January. The shooter was captured within 6 hours, sentenced to death by lethal injection. Case 3. Natalie Corona. January 10th, 2019. 6:48 p.m. 5th Street and D Street. Davis, California. Officer Natalie Corona. Natalie Corona put on her badge for the first time on January 10th, 2019. She took it off for the last time the same day. Her first shift. 22 years old. Fresh out of the academy. 3rd-generation law enforcement. Her father and grandfather both wore the badge before her. She responded to a 3-car collision. Minor fender bender. No injuries. Routine paperwork. A man on a bicycle approached the scene. No words, no warning, no reason. He pulled a semi-automatic handgun from his jacket and opened fire. Corona was struck twice in the torso, once in the neck. Her vest absorbed nothing. The rounds found the gaps. She never drew her weapon, never had the chance. The attack lasted 4 seconds. Her first shift, her last breath. The shooter retreated to a nearby home and turned the gun on himself before officers could respond. Natalie Corona served exactly 1 day, 8 hours, 1 shift. Her badge was retired permanently. No one else will ever wear number 358. Case 4. Sean Bolton. August 1st, 2015. 9:18 p.m. Cottonwood Road, Memphis, Tennessee. Officer Sean Bolton. Bolton was a Marine. 2 combat tours in Iraq, survived IED ambushes, survived firefights in Fallujah. The desert couldn't kill him. A Memphis street did. He approached a parked Mercedes during a routine patrol interruption. The car had been sitting in a dark lot for 47 minutes. Suspicious activity. Standard check. The driver had 1.7 grams of marijuana in his pocket and a .40 caliber Smith & Wesson under his seat. Bolton shined his flashlight through the window, asked for ID. The driver's hand moved, not toward his wallet. 3 shots. Contact distance, less than 18 inches. The muzzle flash burned Bolton's uniform. His body armor was rated for rifle rounds. But at contact range, with a .40 caliber hollow point pressed against the ceramic plate, the kinetic energy transferred directly into his chest cavity. Blunt force cardiac trauma. His heart stopped before he hit the ground. Tremaine Wilborn fled on foot, captured 30 hours later hiding in a vacant apartment. Sentenced to death, still on Tennessee's death row. Case 5. Patrick ZAMARRIPA. July 7, 2016. 8:58 p.m. Main Street and Commerce Street, Dallas, Texas. Officer Patrick ZAMARRIPA. ZAMARRIPA was working crowd control at what had been a peaceful protest. Thousands of marchers, dozens of officers. Routine deployment. He was a Navy veteran. 3 tours overseas. Iraq. Deployed to Bahrain. Survived everything the Middle East threw at him. He couldn't survive downtown Dallas. At 8:58 p.m., a sniper opened fire from an elevated parking structure. The shooter had military training. He knew angles. He knew cover. ZAMARRIPA was hit in the initial volley. The round entered above his tactical vest, through the gap between his collar and shoulder plate. Caliber, 7.62 by 39 mm, the same round used in AK-47s. The bullet fragmented against his clavicle and severed his subclavian artery. He fell on the street he swore to protect. 5 officers died that night, the deadliest day for American law enforcement since 9/11. ZAMARRIPA was 32, a father of 2. His daughter was 5 years old. The shooter was killed by a bomb disposal robot. First time that technology was ever used by U.S. law enforcement to neutralize a threat. Case 6. James KOUSIK, December 20th, 2020. 3:22 p.m., 900 block of Burnham Avenue, Calumet City, Illinois. Officer James KOUSIK. KOUSIK responded to a wellness check. A mother called, worried about her adult son. Mental health crisis. Hadn't taken his medication in 3 days. Standard protocol. Approach with caution, de-escalate, wait for backup. KOUSIK knocked on the door, announced himself clearly. Police department. We're here to help. The door opened. The man inside held a 9-inch kitchen knife. No words. No negotiation. Pure instinct. He lunged forward before KOUSIK could step back. The blade entered KOUSIK's neck at a 45-degree angle, just above his vest collar. Severed his external jugular vein and nicked his trachea. Exsanguination time at that wound depth, approximately 90 seconds. KOUSIK tried to key his radio. The blood filled his throat before he could speak. He was 36 years old, 14 years on the force. He drove to that house to help someone's son. He died trying. The attacker was later found not guilty by reason of insanity. Currently confined to a state psychiatric facility. Case 7. Robert MCKEITHEN. May 4th, 2019. 10:38 p.m. Biloxi Police Department parking lot. Biloxi, Mississippi. Officer Robert MCKEITHEN. MCKEITHEN was 58 years old, 24 years on the force, 90 days from retirement, 3 months from his pension. He was sitting in his patrol car outside the station, filling out paperwork. End of shift. Routine. A man walked across the parking lot, approached his window, asked a question about his vehicle, something about a sticker. MCKEITHEN rolled down his window. He was in the parking lot of his own police station. What could possibly go wrong? The man pulled a 9mm handgun and fired 4 times. Point-blank range. Through the open window, McKEITHEN's body armor didn't cover his neck or face. He died in his patrol car, in the parking lot of his own station, 90 days before retirement. Here's what the system doesn't tell you. The word routine appears in 73% of officer death reports. It's the most dangerous word in policing. The shooter, DARIAN Atkinson, had no prior connection to McKEITHEN. No motive. Random violence. He was captured within 24 hours. Currently awaiting trial for capital murder. Case 8. Joseph GLINIEWICZ. September 1st, 2015. 7:52. M Route 12 near Fox Lake, Illinois. Lieutenant G. were Joe GLINIEWICZ. GLINIEWICZ radioed dispatch. 3 suspicious subjects. He was pursuing on foot through a swampy area. Send backup. 8 minutes later, officers found him face down in the marsh, shot twice, his own weapon beside him. The manhunt lasted 61 days. 3 suspects. National news coverage. Blue Lives Matter vigils across the country. Then the investigation turned. GLINIEWICZ wasn't murdered. He staged his own death. For 7 years, he'd been embezzling funds from a youth program he oversaw. Over $50,000 stolen. A village administrator had begun asking questions. An audit was scheduled for September 15th. GLINIEWICZ shot himself in the chest, twice, with his own service weapon. Made it look like a line-of-duty death. The forensics told the truth. The entry angles were impossible for an external shooter. His name was removed from the memorial wall. His death benefits were revoked. His family returned the flag. Not every badge tells the truth. Case 9. William Jeffrey. October 20th, 2021. 2:14 a.m. 2700 block of Holly Hall Street, Houston, Texas. Officers William Jeffrey and Courtney Waller. Dispatch received a 911 call. Male voice, domestic disturbance. My sister is being beaten. Please send help. Jeffrey and Waller responded immediately. Code 3. Lights and sirens. They arrived at the address in under 4 minutes. They approached the front door, knocked, announced themselves. But here's what they didn't know. There was no domestic disturbance. There was no sister. There was no victim. Arturo Solis had called 911 with a fabricated emergency to lure officers to his door. The moment they knocked, Solis opened fire through the wall with an AR-15. 30 rounds in under 6 seconds. The bullets tore through the drywall like paper. Jeffrey was hit 11 times. He died on the doorstep. Waller was struck but survived. She crawled to cover and returned fire. Here's the systemic failure no one talks about. The 911 system that officers trust with their lives became the weapon that killed them. There is no protocol for when the distress call is the trap. Arturo Solis was killed in the subsequent 3-hour standoff. William Jeffrey was 54 years old, 31 years on the force. These deaths weren't random. They were predictable. Intel failures, system gaps, protocol holes. And until someone fixes them, this list will keep growing. Subscribe if you want more videos like this. But more importantly, remember, because the system won't.